It is tax season, and that also means it is tax refund season. The IRS claimed that last year it issued an average refund of $3,100, and the CRA, the Canadian IRS, claimed that it issued an average refund of $2,200. And now that you have this money, what do you do with it? How do you make it work for you? Is it better to invest it? Is it better to just let it stay in the bank account? Better to blow it all on black or red, whatever color you like? Simply, what can you do to maximize your tax return? Lucky for you, I've spent the last week or two researching on this because I just got my tax return as well. And in this video, I'm going to lay down what I found out. Before I forget, please like and comment and subscribe because you have to do it for the algorithm. I'm also going to be doing all of these steps just to show everybody I am not somebody who lies and I put my money where my mouth is. The first thing is, how do you actually get a tax return? And there's several components that go into this, but the main ones are write-offs. The government incentivizes individuals to invest in assets, whether the stock market or the real estate market, just so that the economy and assets can keep growing. One of the biggest ways to do this is retirement accounts, the 401k or the Roth IRA in America, and the RRSP, FHSA in Canada. Both allow you to contribute to your retirement, and you can get, in most cases, your marginal rate of tax back. So let's say your tax bracket is 45%. That means that if you invest $100 in your retirement accounts, you're going to get roughly $45 back. The exact calculations for the States and Canada are slightly different, but the idea remains the same. Countries also allow you to write off property taxes, mortgage interest payments beyond a certain point, and other household expenses and utilities in some cases as well. The last main category is, of course, education credits. If you're in school, you're paying a ton of money for education, you can write those off and get a percentage back in your tax return. And I got a tax refund of $11,000. For me personally, it was mostly retirement accounts and the work from home benefit because I work from home and I'm able to write off my monthly office expenses for a part of my house and claim that in my tax return. Lots of resources out there. I'll link a couple here and you can also go to these and find out if you're eligible for them. And please make sure to file your taxes. Please, just do it. It's not good if you don't. If you don't want the IRS looking, because the IRS always gets you. Not speaking from personal experience, of course. All right, now you have your tax return, you maximize all your credits. How do you make the best use of it? Well, the first thing you should do is pay off all your high interest debt. Interest rates already through the roof right now. High interest debts are going to hold you back when it comes to achieving your financial goals, with some reports even finding out that half of Americans can't even pay off their credit card month to month. And at a 19 or 20% interest rate, this is going to eat into your savings and be a thorn when it comes to investing money. The first thing you should do is list off all your debts and start to pay them off one by one. And sometimes your tax return is not going to be enough to pay off all your debt, but start with the highest interest one and make sure you spend most of it paying that off. My highest debt is my credit card, which is at a 19.99% interest rate if I don't pay it off. So that's what I'm going to do with a portion of my tax return. For the last month, I owe about $1,000 because I made some purchases on Amazon. I needed a new pair of headphones. I should probably not have spent this much on Uber Eats, but that's okay. I did spend a lot on Uber Eats. And that is $1,000 gone towards my highest interest debt. All right, now that the credit card debt is done, the next thing that you should focus on is investing in an emergency fund. Maybe investing is not the right word, but it is investing towards financial security and safety. Having an emergency fund to fall back on in the case, for example, you lose your job or you have to pay for an expensive medical operation, help a family member out, whatever it may be, having a buffer is extremely important, giving you the mental stability and peace you need to actually work and make more money. Especially in times like these where interest rates are extremely high and expenses are through the roof with inflation. And some studies showing that 51% of Americans don't have an emergency fund to even cover an expense of $1,000. This is bad, especially because 93% of Americans faced at least one emergency in their working life, and 32% of Americans faced an emergency in the last 6 months alone. A good guideline to follow is having 3 to 6 months of emergency expenses set aside. These emergency expenses cover the bare minimum: rent, food, water, utilities, pretty much everything that you need to stay alive and keep living. So if, let's say, your rent is $1,500 and every other expense you have come out to around $2,500, your emergency fund to start off should be $7,500. This amount can also vary individually to individual. If your expenses are higher, you should probably have a larger emergency fund. But the bare minimum you should have is having enough for rent or your mortgage, plus what you need for food. You don't have to count your gym. You don't have to count your Netflix subscriptions or your other subscriptions. But you should count everything that you need to stay reasonably healthy for those 3 to 6 months. And most people are not going to get 6 months worth of emergency expense from their tax return, but you should put some of it towards building this emergency buffer. Now that we've got our debt and our emergency fund sorted out, we can look towards saving for retirement. In a recent report, a study found that the average American has only $100,000 saved for retirement, with residents under 35 having only $30,000 saved. This might not have been a big problem, but another report also found out that you need an average of $1 million to retire in America to sustain yourself for 30 years, and $800,000 if you want to sustain yourself for 25 years. And keep in mind, this is just the average. If you live in a high-cost area like California or New York, you're going to have to pay much higher, with residents in California needing $1.7 million to sustain themselves over 30 years, and residents of New York needing $1.5 million. Of course, there's also the opposite, where, for example, people living in Alabama need to save only $880,000. It's funny that I'm saying only, but compared to California, that's almost half. There's two main advantages of investing in your retirement accounts. Well, first, you actually save for retirement and you ensure that you're able to pay for your expenses and also live a decent life after you're done with work. And the second advantage is the tax benefits that we've already talked about. My marginal tax rate is 45%, which means that every $100 I invest, I'm going to get $45 back from the government. And this is $45 right now. One of the biggest arguments or misconceptions I see when it comes to retirement accounts is when people say, well, when I take it out, I'll have to pay tax again, so it's not really a benefit. You do have to pay tax when you take your money out of most retirement accounts. But the thing is, when you're not working and you're retired, your tax bracket is going to be much lower. And once again, let's take me, the guinea pig, as an example. My marginal tax rate right now is around 45%, which means that if I invest $100 in my RRSP, which is the Canadian retirement account for those who don't know, I'm going to get $45 back right now. Let's say when I'm 65, hopefully I do get to 65, that's a good age. I take out my $100. That $100 is counted as income, and as people rightfully point out, you are going to be taxed on that. The thing is though, I'm not in the 45% bracket anymore. My marginal tax is going to be likely much lesser than 45% if I'm not working, and I'm going to end up paying less tax on the money that I put in. Let's say if my rate is 35%, I'll end up paying $35. If it's even lower, I'll end up paying even lower. And the thing is, even let's say I'm a billionaire at that point and my tax rate is insanely high, it's 50% or 55%. I don't even know higher tax rates because I'm not a billionaire. Maybe they actually pay nothing in most countries. Let's say that my tax rate is higher than 45%, it's 50% or 55%, and I end up paying $55 on my withdrawals. The thing is, it's $55 30 years from now. We've all heard about what a dollar could have bought 20, 30 years ago, and how the value of the dollar keeps on falling as time goes on due to inflation. So $55 in the future, 30 years from now, is going to be worth $20 in today's money. So even if I'm in a higher tax bracket, I'm technically saving money by investing in retirement accounts and taking them out later. So I'll encourage you to take a part of this refund and put it towards tax advantage accounts or retirement accounts, and you'll thank yourself 30 years from now. One of the things you can do to help yourself in this is take advantage of employer matching. A lot of employers in the United States and Canada provide retirement matching where they match a certain percentage of your income up to a certain amount and invest it for you. So let's say that you're earning $80,000 and your employer says that they'll match 4% of your retirement contributions. That means that if you put in $3,200, they're going to match it and put $3,200 more, giving you a total of $6,400. This is an automatic 100% return, basically for doing nothing, just making sure that you have enough room for that $3,200 to invest. And some misconceptions exist here as well, where people think if I take this money and I invest it myself, I can do better. If you can match 100% return, be my guest and do it. Put it all on black. I know for a fact that 100% return is very tough with investments, particularly over a year. So I take advantage of this and make sure that I have enough room to match that amount to 100%. Moving on to the next point, which is somewhat tied into this, and that is investing your money. I would argue it's not enough to just leave your money in retirement accounts. You need to invest it in a vehicle that allows it to grow and compound over time. And your tax return could be the perfect opportunity for you to get your get your feet wet and look at some investment opportunities. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It doesn't have to be anything super risky. You just need to find out what your goal is with investing. If you're young, like me, a young man, you're going to want to look at more growth-focused investments. This could be the stock market and indices like the S&P 500 or the Nasdaq, which hold hundreds of companies that we all use and that are not going anywhere in the future. And the thing with these indices is, even if 1 or 2 or 10 companies go bankrupt, they're just going to be replaced by other companies that are doing well and take their market share, making sure that you don't blow all your money in your investment account. This is a stark contrast to investing in individual companies, where if they go under, you're basically done for and you've lost all your money. And if investing in the 500 biggest companies in the United States of America, best country in the world, is too risky for you, you can also look at ETFs that invest in the entirety of the stock market. Some popular ones are VEQT or HEQT, which invest in not only the US, but also Canada, the international markets, and other developing countries like India, China, Singapore, Vietnam, etc. And if the stock market overall in the entire world is too risky for you, you can also put it in an ETF that tracks savings accounts. Interest rates are high right now, with a lot of saving accounts giving you 4.5 to 5%, and you can take advantage of that and keep on growing your money. Although I would never recommend a savings account, because I think it's a terrible investment, because the banks wouldn't be giving you 4.5% if they couldn't take your money and invest it in the stock market and make more than 4.5%. Anyways, I'm going to be once again putting my money where my mouth is and investing my tax return as well. I'm going to be taking $5,000 for this video and investing it in my FHSA. This is also called the First Home Savings Account, and is an account made by the Canadian government to encourage people to save for their first homes, because the money can be withdrawn tax-free and invested towards the down payment of your first house. With most of my money, I'm going to be buying an S&P 500 ETF, in this case VFV, a Nasdaq 100 ETF, in this case HXQ, and a slightly leveraged total market ETF, in this case HEQL. I think the first two, the S&P 500 ETF and the Nasdaq 100 ETF, should be looked at by most investors as a vehicle for growth. I'm also going to be buying Google, Apple, and Microsoft, 3 other companies that I really love and I believe in, because I use all of their products either personally or at work, and I think they have distinct moats in each of these. Moats simply mean competitive advantage. If you look at Apple, they have the iPhone, they have the MacBook, and now Vision Pro, which is the best headset of all time, only for $3,000. Microsoft is in a very strong partnership with OpenAI, trying to kickstart the next revolution in tech, quote unquote, and Google still dominates search, whether you like it or not. They dominate search. They have a very strong social media offering and also a very strong ads team. Ads are not going anywhere. Ads have been around for hundreds of years. So I think those 3 companies are a safe bet. Don't recommend individual companies unless you're willing to take on the risk and are okay with the consequences. And some other companies that I like are Pepsi and P&G, both consumer giants. I use their products to wipe my ass, and I don't think that's going to be replaced by AI anytime soon. If they do that, then I don't know. And also some other Canadian companies that I used, like the Bank of Nova Scotia, and TELUS and Manulife Financial, an insurance company and a telecom, both with strong markets in Canada itself. The last ETF I bought was VDY. This is essentially the Canadian stock market. I put some money towards this because I live in Canada, and even though it's not looking so good right now, I still want the country to do well. So this is my contribution to Canadian society. A couple of smaller ETFs I bought are HYLD and HDIV. Both covered call ETFs, tracking the US stock market and the Canadian market respectively. Now, I don't recommend covered call ETFs necessarily, but there's been people on the internet that have said that are good, and as we know, everything on the internet is true and legit. In all seriousness, I just want to try these out with a small percentage of my portfolio to see what the total return actually is and if they're a good investment or not. They provide you good income with yields of above 10%, but a lot of people say over time the total return is limited and actually might be negative. I'll leave a link to these if you're interested in exploring more of them as a source of passive income. The last thing I bought was crypto, baby. You know, crypto it's amazing. It can go up, it can go down, it can go like sideways. You never know what's gonna happen with crypto, and that is why I chose to only invest $150 in it. And mostly I just buy Ethereum because I understand the Ethereum ecosystem better. I understand the use cases, whether it be for finance. I understand how it could make a difference and how people could have utility from Ethereum. Bitcoin, on the other hand, I don't get as much, and that's why I chose to invest a small percentage of my income in crypto, and I'm prepared to lose this completely and be really sad that I invested this $150. So now you paid off all your debt, maybe set up a bit of an emergency fund, took some money and invested it in retirement accounts, in the stock market, the bond market, whatever you like. I also encourage you to give some of this tax return for a good cause. There's plenty of research that's been done on blue zones. Blue zones are essentially places on earth where people live longer, are happier on average, and have a more healthy lifestyle. Of course, some research is inclusive, but something that they found that exists in most of these communities is the sense of having purpose or belonging. The Japanese call this ikigai, and the concept is very interesting. People who have a sense of belonging and a sense of purpose in life, a sense of connection with community, and think of life as being interconnected and more than themselves, think more about future generations and how they can learn from past generations and the mistakes that they've made, tend to, on average, live a more peaceful and contentful life. So I encourage you to take some of this money, no matter what you get. It can be $10, $20, or $50, doesn't really matter, but do something nice with it and do something that your future self would be proud of way down the line. So I took around $500 of this tax refund and I donated it to a charity that's helping people without homes get back on their feet in terms of providing meals, providing them affordable accommodation, and trying to help them also land jobs. And for you, if this amount is $10, just buy someone a meal. If it's $20, maybe buy them a shirt. Doesn't really matter what the act is. Just make sure you don't forget to be kind with a portion of this money as well. The last thing I want to focus on is experiences. We've talked about this before. A lot of the times we tend to focus on ourselves and forget that life is more than just stacking up cash and making sure that you get the next zero in your bank account. You should also spend a bit of this money on yourself. This could be trying out a new restaurant that you've always wanted to go to but thought was a tad bit more expensive. Maybe getting yourself a new pair of shoes that you really needed to work out or run, or maybe you just thought they looked good. Or maybe travel somewhere that you've always wanted to go to but we're putting it off. The point is, spend on yourself as well, and make sure you're also adding to the experience column of life and not just the monetary column. Because this way, if you're happy, if you're content, and also doing things you love, you're more focused and more likely to keep on earning money as well. So I'm going to take a portion of this income and I'm going to invest it towards travel and also taking a language course that I've always wanted to take, just because I think that adds more to my life than just putting this extra money towards the stock market and seeing more zeros in my bank account when I'm 65. There you have it. That is probably the most optimal way to invest your tax returns. Lots of data and lots of facts and information. And I guess the best thing you can do is just give me your money, because I'm going to keep it safe. Like, comment, and subscribe, because it's you have to do this for the algorithm. And I hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you in the next one.